The invisible trap. Why perfection always fails you. Have you ever felt like no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough? That the moment you reach a goal, another one appears further, higher, more demanding? This isn't ambition. It's not drive. This is perfectionism. And it's a trap. Perfectionism is the lie we wrap in gold. We say it makes us better, that it pushes us to grow. But the truth is, it's a silent thief. It takes your peace, your sleep, your joy. It makes every success feel like a setup for failure. Every compliment feel undeserved. Every rest feel like guilt. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Perfectionism is one of those unconscious forces. It disguises itself as excellence, as discipline, as self-respect. But beneath the mask is fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And so we overcorrect. We redo the email 3 times. We spend hours fixing things no one will notice. We obsess over every word, every image, every choice. Not because we care about quality, but because we are terrified of criticism. But here's the truth. Perfectionism doesn't protect you. It isolates you. It alienates you from your own humanity. Because to be human is to be flawed, to be tired, to be inconsistent. To be alive is to be incomplete. You're not chasing perfection. You're running from shame. You're trying to erase the parts of you that you think no one will love. But those parts, that's where your soul lives. When you try to become flawless, you disappear. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real self-sabotage. When rest feels like failure. Why does resting feel like guilt? Why does taking a break feel like you're falling behind? For perfectionists, rest isn't just a pause. It feels like giving up, like letting the world pass you by while you're standing still. But here's the paradox. The more exhausted you are, the more your perfectionism grows. Because when you're tired, you lose clarity. You start chasing control just to feel safe. So you work harder, push further, and collapse in cycles. Carl Jung believed that burnout is not a sign of laziness. It's a sign that you're living out of alignment, that your outer life and your inner truth are in conflict. And this is exactly what perfectionism does. It pushes you to maintain a version of yourself that isn't real, one that's admired, polished, and productive, but completely disconnected from your actual needs. So rest becomes scary, because to rest is to admit that you're human. To stop means risking being seen as lazy, unmotivated, or weak. And in a perfectionist's mind, those are the worst possible sins. But let's ask something deeper. When did rest become something you had to earn? When did doing nothing become a source of shame? Since when did your worth start, depending on how tired you are? Perfectionism doesn't just steal your energy. It rewrites your values. It convinces you that productivity equals self-worth. That busy means important. That burnout means dedication. And the more you believe that, the more rest feels like failure. But in truth, rest is not a luxury. It is not a reward for suffering. It is a necessity, a sacred pause, the space where your nervous system resets and your soul begins to speak again. When you deny yourself rest, you deny your right to exist as a full human being. You are not a machine. You are not a brand. You are not a checklist. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to simply exist without earning it. Maybe what you need is not more effort, but permission to stop trying so hard. The mask of excellence. There's a certain perfectionist who never seems broken, always put together, always composed. They smile at every request, meet every deadline, and exceed every expectation. They are praised for their reliability, their standards, their strength. But behind the mask, a storm. They are not fine. They are afraid, terrified that if they let go just for a moment, everything will fall apart. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted by society. It's not fake, it's functional. But when the mask becomes the only face you show, you forget who you really are underneath. Perfectionists build identities around this mask: the achiever, the fixer, the strong one. But these identities come at a cost, because every time you act like everything is okay when it's not, you're abandoning the parts of you that are crying out for attention. You tell yourself, "I just have high standards. It's not good enough yet. I can handle it." But what you're really saying is, "I'm not allowed to be tired. I'm not allowed to need help. I'm not allowed to be messy." So the performance continues, and the applause keeps coming, and you become more and more invisible to yourself. But here's the secret: excellence isn't a performance. It's not in perfection. It's in authenticity. Real strength isn't smiling through pain. It's admitting when you're not okay. It's letting people see your humanness, because that's what makes you whole. You don't have to prove yourself by being flawless. You prove yourself by being real. The hidden cost of control. Control is comforting for a moment. It gives you the illusion that everything is in order, that you're safe, that nothing will spiral. But here's what perfectionists rarely admit: control is exhausting. It drains your spirit in small daily doses. And worst of all, it never truly works. You plan every detail. You triple-check every step. You fix everyone's mess before they notice it. And somehow you still can't breathe, because your entire nervous system is trapped in hypervigilance. Carl Jung warned that the more we try to dominate the world outside, the more chaos we create inside. Perfectionism is not precision, it's panic in disguise. A constant attempt to avoid shame, rejection, or the fear of losing love. And control becomes your coping strategy, your invisible armor. But that armor is heavy, and it keeps you distant from your own softness. What you call high standards might just be an inability to tolerate uncertainty. What you call responsibility might be fear that everything will collapse if you stop holding it together. What you call being strong might be your refusal to admit that you're exhausted. But here's the truth you need to hear: you don't need to be the one who holds everything together. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world, and trying to control everything isn't strength. It's survival mode. It's a trauma response. Jung believed that healing comes not from more control, but from surrender, from allowing life to be unpredictable, from facing the unknown, and from trusting that your worth isn't tied to how tightly you hold on. So what would happen if you let go a little? If you stopped fixing everything? If you allowed a mess to stay messy? Maybe nothing would fall apart. Or maybe it would, but in the best possible way. Because when perfectionism collapses, what's left isn't failure, it's freedom. The fear behind perfection. Perfectionism looks like discipline. It looks like ambition. It looks like strength. But underneath, it's fear. The fear of being seen as average. The fear of being rejected. The fear of not being enough. And most of all, the fear of being truly known. Because what if people see the real you? The insecure you, the tired you, the one who doesn't always have it together. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear. It grows stronger. It becomes our shadow. And perfectionism is often a way to hide that shadow, to cover it with achievement, applause, and performance. But here's the paradox. The more you try to avoid your shadow, the more it controls you. And the more you try to be perfect, the more disconnected you feel. Because you're not loved for who you are. You're loved for your mask. And no mask, no matter how beautiful, can make you feel truly seen. So what do? You work harder. You get better. You become even more perfect. But no matter what you do, the anxiety doesn't go away. Because you're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of being ordinary, of being forgettable, of not being worthy of love without earning it. But love that has to be earned is not love. It's a transaction. And perfectionism is the currency. Jung taught that the path to wholeness begins when you confront your fear, not conceal it. When you let yourself be seen, flaws and all. So what if you were no longer afraid of being enough just as you are? What if you believed that you don't have to prove your worth, only to remember it? Letting go without falling apart. Letting go is not weakness. It's not surrender. And it's not giving up. Letting go is an act of courage. It means choosing peace over performance, presence over perfection. For a perfectionist, this is terrifying, because the idea of not trying feels like failing. If you don't push yourself, who will? If you stop fixing everything, won't it all collapse? If you loosen your grip, what's left? Carl Jung taught that what we cling to most often reveals what we fear most to lose. We cling to control because we fear falling apart. But here's the truth. You won't fall apart. You'll fall into place. The nervous system you've trained for hyperproductivity needs a new language. Not urgency, presence. Not perfection, compassion. Not performance, connection. The body doesn't trust safety because it was taught that rest is laziness, that stillness is danger, that softness is weakness. But healing is remembering that calm is not complacency, that you can slow down without disappearing, that you can be kind to yourself without losing your drive. You were not meant to grind forever. You were meant to live, to breathe, to feel. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally trust. Trust that what matters will remain. Trust that your worth isn't conditional. Trust that your softness won't make you break. Perfection taught you to hold on. Healing teaches you to release. So take the risk. Leave the email unanswered. Don't fix what's not yours. Say not now. Take the nap. Breathe. The world will keep spinning. And for once, you might too. Wholeness over perfection. Perfection is about image. Wholeness is about truth. Perfection seeks applause. Wholeness seeks alignment. Perfection wants control. Wholeness wants connection. Carl Jung said, "I'd rather be whole than good," because goodness, when driven by fear, becomes performance. A fragile self always asking, "Am I doing enough? Am I enough?" But wholeness doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't ask to be impressive. It just is. To be whole is to accept your contradictions, to allow your joy and sadness to coexist, to stop choosing between success and rest, between ambition and self-compassion. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. This means you will make mistakes. You will fail. You will disappoint people. But you will also breathe. You will rest. You will laugh for no reason. And that's not weakness. That's life. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming yourself, requires you to drop the mask, to stop performing, to stop editing yourself for approval. You were not born to be liked. You were born to be whole. So if today you feel tired of holding it all together, let that be a sign that you are finally ready, not to be perfect, but to be free.